Welcome to the Cutting Edge Convention, a worldwide movement to revolutionize your life. No more stumbling around in the dark, wasting precious weeks, months, and years trying to figure it out on your own. Get ready for valuable innovations and strategies. And now, here's your host, Marcy Peters, the Age Backward Mentor.
Hello, and welcome to the Cutting Edge Convention, Innovations to Revolutionize Your Life. I'm Marcy Peters, your host and the Age Backward Mentor, and I help successful, smart men and women step into the lives that they love and the bodies they love being in. Today, I want to introduce you to my friend, Nick Unsworth, and let me tell you a bit about him before we jump into the topic. Nick is a high-performance coach, international speaker, and best-selling author. He's the CEO of Life on Fire, and his mission is to help you love what you do for work, relentlessly pursue your passions, and live the dream. He sold his business by age 30, and he's coached over 2,500 people, including Damon John from Shark Tank, Mike Devine from NavySeals.com, Keller Williams Real Estate, Safeco Insurance, and lots more. Nick, I'm so excited to have you here today. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm so fired up to be here.
Okay, so today we're talking about life vision, and Nick has some steps he's going to take us through. Really exciting. But first, Nick, could you perhaps tell us how you got involved in doing this work in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think, when I think about how all this got started, it was, it all stems back to being a kid. And I think a lot of people can relate to, if you think back to when you were a child, right? And it's like, what were those dreams you had as a kid? What did you really want? And what's fun about thinking back when you were a child, or if you just witness children, there's no lid on the container. Like there's no ceiling for your life. And as a kid, I was always a dreamer. Like I would get caught daydreaming. And, when I looked around, I always saw that my parent, my dad was crazy. He was always working like crazy. I looked around at other families and people were just in the grind, and working like crazy, weren't able to be at, sporting events and games and things. And so as a child, I always thought, well, I want to have financial freedom. I want to be free. I want to have time freedom. I want to have a family one day, and I want to be able to do anything I want with my life and live it with purpose. And so I just had that dream as a child. And then as I got older, went to college. And then what was interesting is I saw that my vehicle was to be an entrepreneur, and so after reading books and just studying successful people, I just found that for me was going to be the best path. So, I got into network marketing. I got into real estate. I was looking for any way that I could create this lifestyle. Now, the irony is that was my vision as a child, and that was my vision through college. But what ended up happening is that in my 20s, I was so focused on my childhood dream of building and selling a company before I turned 30 that the purpose of which I wanted to build a company was for the freedom. And yet, as I was going through the motions, that was the last thing that I had. So my family knew that they were second to the business. I was in a relationship for 7 years. She knew that the business came first. And so I sacrificed. And when I look back, I had forgotten to live, so in my 20s, I ended up experiencing 11 business failures. I, was invisible in life, to friends and family, and it was not at all what I wanted. And it was ironic because that was the opposite effect that I wanted. And so I was, I hit this point where I was 28 years old and I had my 11th business failure. And for the first time in my life, I started to listen to the naysayers, people that were saying things like, Nick, why don't you just go out and get a job? Why don't you be more like your brother? You're clearly not good at this. You keep failing at this. And what happened was my mom gave me the book, The Secret. And it's crazy. I get goosebumps just reliving this every, when I share this part of my story. And in the cover, she just wrote, I believe in you. And some people look at the book, The Secret, and they're like, oh, well, that's just, wishy-washy dreaming kind of stuff. It doesn't work, law of attraction. And then there's another camp of people that look at it and say, and have the view that I took on, which was that book just simply gave me an awareness. It gave me an awareness over the thoughts that I think in my mind. That is the reality I get to create. And what's interesting is that in life, we get to choose that we're going to believe in ourselves, or we get to choose fear. And in any of these scenarios, I just realized that I'm actually in control. You're in control, right? Like we're in a lot more control than we realize. And so all of a sudden I caught this second wind, and the second wind was really, because that book gave me a lot of hope, and that book rekindled like that fire, and it rekindled that like purpose and mission and dream that I had as a child to build and sell a company, but to live my life along the way. And so what happened next was I ended up really crystallizing this vision to sell a company by the time I turned 30. Now, in my circumstance, I was 50 grand in debt. In my circumstance, I lived in a dump. I didn't have kitchen cabinets, no garbage disposal, no dishwasher. I mean, I wasn't living in like a third world country, but that's not what I intended at 28 years old, And so at that point, once I had my vision, and this actually ties into the 5 steps that I'll be teaching today, is that I clarified what I really wanted. And then in the second step, I actually declared publicly that I was going to build and sell a company in 2 years. Now, everyone around me was like, Nick, are you crazy? You failed at 11 businesses. And not only did you just profess that you're going to sell a company in 2 years, you don't even know what the company is, right? And I was like, I have no idea what the company is going to be. They're like, so how do you know that you're going to build and sell a company? And I was like, because I'm in control of my destiny, because I'm choosing to think that belief and these thoughts. And then I took it a step further. I even decided to get a tattoo on my chest of a cross. And in the middle, it actually has the logo of the S from The Secret in the middle. And then it says, Believe 2012 backwards. And that for me that's the year that I turned 30. And so I want to be able to, when I'm brushing my teeth before I go to bed, I want to be able to look at that and have this daily reminder that we can truly do anything we put our minds to, right? Even if it seems impossible, like we are capable of that, And so what ended up happening is that from the vision, which I believe starts like a manifestation process, you start attracting people to you and resources. But the key thing is that I took action and I had a date, because if you just have a vision or a vision board and there's no deadline, well, it's so ambiguous, So I knew that it was before I turned 30. I took that vision, I put it onto a vision board. I took that vision, I declared it publicly. As soon as I said what I was going to do, I started attracting resources and people to me. And, from that, I then wrote a letter, which is my third step, is you write a letter to yourself as if you've achieved it. And so in this letter, I write a whole letter that is what I'm experiencing the day that I turned 30. And it's like, hey, what's up, brother? Man, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud that despite your circumstance, despite being in debt, despite being, at that time I was 213 pounds, and all these health issues, and all these people who no longer believed in me. And it was like, and you fought through it, and you dug deep, and you chose to believe in yourself, and you chose to believe in your vision that it would come true. And wow, what a journey it's been, and I wrote it out as if it was a reality. And so what happens is that when you do that, it's a visualization technique where if you can visualize your vision, and you can do it in a way that when you read that letter to yourself, that it's such an experience for you that you literally get goosebumps, that you can see it, you can kinesthetically feel it, you can hear what's going on. And so I wrote it in such detail that every time I read it, I would get goosebumps and I would just get so fired up. And that is a constant power up. And so like when you wake up, I would wake up the next day and it's like, well, I'm still 50 grand in debt. I'm still, the guy that failed at 11 businesses. I still have a lot of people that don't believe in me, but I had that vision that I kept reading. And your unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and what you're pretending in your head. So this is kind of the same line of like affirmations and mantras, that it became such a repetition that it started becoming my reality. And so what's crazy is that from that experience, the next step is to resource up. So all of a sudden, I'm sure, as you know, Marcy, is that, you ever have one of those experiences where all of a sudden everyone's emailing about something? right? Like a product launch. And so all of a sudden, out of the blue, everyone's emailing me about this guy, Eben Pagan. And I had, at this point, bought in tons of online products. I had bought in courses. I was on webinars. I did all this stuff. And the reality was I just wasn't taking action on what I was buying. But all of a sudden, I get all these emails about this guy, Eben Pagan. And it was like, the typical, middle of the night infomercial kind of a scenario where it was the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep. I was, had all this debt, and I was, thinking about how am I going to get out of this? And I watched this guy's 90-minute video, and he explained an event that he had coming up, and he explained mentorship and, the value of it and marketing and all these things. And I just felt it in my bones. Like I knew that this was, I attracted this to me, and I knew, because none of these people that were emailing me, I never signed up for their email list. Like I just got it. And I just knew that this guy was going to help me get to where I want to go. So that's the fourth step of achieving your life vision, is sometimes we have to resource up. So the fourth step is called resource up, because if we want to achieve that life vision, well, who do we need to become to actually achieve it? What skill do we have that we don't presently have that we need to make that happen? So I had kept failing at these businesses. And if I looked at it, a common denominator was that I wasn't good at marketing. I always had a hard time getting customers. And in the 11th company that failed was because I actually used TV commercials and print and radio, and it was terrible. I invested over 30 grand and made back $280. Can you imagine that? You put out $30,000 and you make back $280, and half the money went to charity. It was a not-for-profit kind of business that I had. So from that scenario, I realized that I needed this guy. I needed his help with marketing. And the problem was I was 50 grand in debt. I didn't have the money. I ended up, calling up his company. I ended up asking if I could bring a friend. And they said yes to cut my costs in half. And then I went out and I got on the phone and I started talking to people about who wanted to go with me. And I enrolled this, a friend, Laura DeMeo. And then I ended up talking Discover into extending my credit line by $2,500 so I get there. And I'll fast forward this part of the story is that I get to his event, and it was exactly what I needed. And isn't that so cool that when you get clear on your vision, you declare it publicly, you write that letter to yourself, you identify what resources do you need? Is it a book? Is it Toastmasters? Who do you need to know to build, your business to get the vision that you want? So I get to the event, so broke. I'm literally, I had brought protein mix in a sandwich bag. And we'd go to lunch and I would have to run to my room and make a protein shake in the little, the hotel cups are always so small, in one of those little cups. Didn't even have a blender ball, right? It was hard knocks. And what happened is that at that event, he said some magic words to me about getting into action. I had heard getting into action probably 1,000 times, but he said, you just got to pick something. You're waiting for everything to be perfect. You're waiting for it to be this perfect purpose in your life. And sometimes you just need to go. Because your next action is going to lead you closer and closer to that divine purpose in your life. And so I took his advice. I make a decision. I come home and I, see the girl I was in a relationship with for 7 years, and I see family members, and I'm like, I've got it. I know what I'm going to do. I've got the business. I know how I'm going to build and sell a company in 2 years. And everyone's like, well, what is it? And I said, I'm going to be a Facebook marketing expert. And then all of a sudden they're like, Nick, you're not even on Facebook. You don't even use it. You don't even have a profile. Have you lost your mind? What is wrong with you? And that's the thing, is that when you have a big vision and you get moving into action on it, you are going to get tested. And if you don't know that you're going to get tested, sometimes these tests will get you to quit or start and stop. And I knew I was going to be tested. And so everyone around me tested me, challenged me on it. And instead of reverting to fear, I used the fifth step, which is called just choosing faith over fear. So believing in yourself that it's possible, as opposed to rescinding and backing down due to fear. So I said, you know what? I don't care that people are saying that, who am I to say I'm a Facebook marketing expert? And I realized that because I bought courses on Facebook marketing, because I was committed to being the best at it, I could start small. My first customer was $200, and I had one guy, was on this big top 10 podcast, and he goes, "So you were basically a con." And I said, "Dude, I take complete offense to that. Every single person that starts a business starts from scratch." And you know what? I was authentic about it. I told people I was brand new, and I charged almost nothing, and I over-delivered on what I promised. So there was nothing wrong about that. If you are passionate about something, you've got a reason why behind it. Every one of you can hop into action, get going. So fast forward on the story, I kept reading the letter. I kept, choosing faith over fear as I went. And sure enough, I ended up getting clients, growing the business, multiple six figures fast. The timing was great. This is in 2010. No one knew what they were doing on Facebook ads. So I was a hero to a lot of companies. And sure enough, and just think about, this is what's so fun about life, and life's like synchronicity or synchronicity or whatever the word is. But like, what happened was that my first 5-figure client, who then became my first 6-figure client, that guy ultimately wanted more and more and more time. And I finally said, "Listen, Scott, I can't. I've got too many responsibilities, too many other clients. I just can't give you more time." And then this was about 2 months before I turned 30. He said the magic words, "Well, why don't I just buy your business?" And how crazy is this? Can you guess where I met him?
Where did you meet him?
I met him at that Eben Pagan event.
Oh, of course.
Isn't that crazy? It's a guy who I met at the freaking event. Like, it's just so wild. Like, in hindsight, when and this is a cool exercise, people always say, "Well, so Nick, how do you clarify your vision?" Well, one thing that's really powerful is you just take a piece of paper, draw a line on it, horizontal line, and just jot down your life experiences, your traumas, your ups, your downs, whatever just comes to you. And you want to do it within 10 minutes. You're just going as fast as you can, and you're writing things down. And what's interesting is you can start to see the different life experiences you've had that will highlight some of your skills. It'll highlight what you're interested in, what your gifts are. And what, interestingly enough, it will also highlight and give you very, very significant clues about what your purpose is or what your vision is, So in my story, I had failed at businesses because of bad marketing. So the 11th failure was because I invested in TV commercials and things like that. So my vision was to start a company to help businesses have a positive return on their investment. So what's interesting is that my biggest failure of marketing, my biggest blunder in business was going that far in debt, turned out to be my biggest opportunity, right? And so for a lot of people, when you look back, it's like, I had one client who, she has an autistic child, which was a big challenge in her life. And she devoted her life to helping, him get off the autism spectrum and rehabilitating him, all the kinds of cool stuff that she did. And she hired me because she wanted to grow her insurance agent's business. And when we did this timeline exercise and we went through it, in my mind, I'm thinking, is this really what her life vision is, to sell insurance? Or maybe there's something bigger, right? I believe that every single human being has a calling on their life, that they've got unique gifts and skills. However, they've got to have the courage to go after their dreams. A lot of people just play it safe, and a lot of people will settle and be average. And so when I sat down with her and we looked at her timeline, and then I used a very important technique. So this is what I call like the lottery example. So I put her in a hypothetical situation. I said, "Tracy, I want you to imagine you leave this meeting, you're on your way home, you need gas, you stop at the same gas station you always stop at. You're at the counter and the person in front of you gets a lottery ticket. You say to yourself, 'I never do this, but I'll take one too.' You get a lottery ticket. You go home, have your dinner, turn on the news, and sure enough, you are the lucky winner. Except this isn't just any Powerball. This is the world's biggest, largest one ever. It's $100 billion. You win $100 billion. You can't ever possibly spend that in your lifetime. You'd spend a year, you travel the world, you give to your favorite nonprofits, you do all these things. Now we're sitting here today, and I ask you, Tracy, you have $50 billion in your checking account. What is going to light you up inside? What is your legacy that you're going to leave? You have all the money in the world. You don't need to work, but what would you love to do every single day? What gives your life meaning? What's your vision for your life? Would you still do insurance? And she looks at me, and Marcy, she looks at me and just goes, I would build an autism treatment center. I would devote my life to helping children with autism and their families, and I would change the world. And then I look at her and I go, so why don't you do that? And then she's like, are you crazy? She's like, I'm an insurance agent. I don't have the money for that. I hired you to learn how to market this insurance business. She gave me 100 reasons really quick why she couldn't do it. And that to me is like, this is what I was talking about in the beginning, is like, when we put ourselves in that state and you remove money from the equation, what happens is we start to think like a child again. We start to dream in a different way, because as entrepreneurs, we don't go for certain things, or we don't follow our heart's passion or build the legacy because we're hindered by, I don't know the how, the quote, how. I don't have the money, the resources. But when we let go of that and use that lottery hypothetical and pull money out of it, and I said, well, Tracy, if money didn't matter and that's what you would do, why not? What if we just focused on that? Let's take the next hour and let's just focus on that. Let's see if we could build a life around that. And isn't it interesting that it's possible that this could actually grow your insurance business? And she's like, that's crazy. But what ended up happening for Tracy is that when we got her through her fears, and you just have to acknowledge them and just realize that if you're experiencing all that fear, there's probably a growth on the other side. And so what happened was she used the exact same 5-step process, right? I got her clear on her vision, what her life would look like, feel like, what she would experience being the founder of a nonprofit helping autistic children. So she visualized it. I had her write a letter to herself as if she had built this autism treatment center. She then got excited about it. She saw what I was talking about, what she really wanted. And then she took the bold step to declare it publicly on Facebook. She had an end date. She even went as far, and this is crazy, but she went as far as to tattoo her wrist a puzzle piece that says 2019 on it. That puzzle piece represents autism. It's their logo for Autism Speaks. In 2019, when she will have completed building that building. And sure enough, and this is what's so powerful, is that, for anyone listening or watching this, that just by speaking it, just by declaring publicly with an end date, you are already creating things in motions that you're already getting it in motion, even if you don't realize it. So just by her doing that, she has all this accountability. Just by her doing that, sure enough, someone reached out and was like, hey, you got to meet Adam Braun from Pencils of Promise, right? Adam Braun's a big time, founder of one of the fastest growing nonprofits. She ends up buying his course. So she resourced up in step number 4, bought his course for $500 on how to start a nonprofit. She just got into action on it, right? So she started a nonprofit. And then she has had so many challenges and tests, choosing faith over fear to believe that her vision will come true. And now fast forward a year later, I did an interview with her and I was asking her some questions about what's going on. And she was acting like how a kid acts, right? Big smile. She went from kind of a somber state when I first met her to like big smile, fully alive, right? Just like busting at the seams, like, oh my God, like, Nick, you won't believe it. I started the nonprofit. It's already done. I've got a board. I did this. And I'm just like, this is incredible. And then, so I was like, so tell me about your insurance business. And she said, in 20 years of selling insurance, homeowners policies, renters, car insurance, in 20 years, she has never had a bigger year. She set her own company record in 20 years last year. And I said, so why do you think that is? She said, because my vision's so big. It's so big that it forced me to think differently about my insurance business. That I went from being in the business, working in the weeds, dealing with all the customers, to I had to create leverage. I hired 3 other insurance producers that now do the work. I've made more money than I've ever made. That's funding building this autism treatment center. It's created more time, freedom, and leverage. And now I took the first vacation in 7 years. So that's the 5 steps from my perspective, Tracy's perspective. But man, as you can tell, I'm just like a little bit fired up about it because it's It took me a while to get it down to like this 5 and elaborate it like that. But these were the things that I kept doing throughout my life. And now that we teach it, it's just so fun because anyone who just truly commits to it, we see results.
Yeah, this is amazing. Okay, so I love how you interwove the steps into your own story and Tracy's story. So let's just break down the actual steps, and then I'd like to hear another success story if you don't mind.
Sweet. Sounds good. So so the first one is vision. And so vision, think of that as like, that's like your life purpose. But the thing is, the reason why I don't like saying purpose is because purpose puts so much pressure, and everyone thinks that it's got to be completely perfect before you can move forward. And so I found that it's really about vision and action, because vision without action is just a dream. So when it comes to your vision, we really want to help clarify that. And so it can be as simple as answering the question, what do you want? Right? What do you want is in coaching or psychology, it's tough for people to conceptualize. So some of the ways that you can get there are the timeline exercise, where you look back at your story, because sometimes your biggest trauma or your biggest mess is often your biggest message. Think about someone who they lost their legs and now they're a motivational speaker, right? Like when you think about how and we've all seen those like inspirational videos of someone who they have a near-death experience or they get a terminal illness and they decide to live. That's how we want to act now, right? Like, tomorrow's not guaranteed. So let's live fully now, today. And so, are there situations that are traumas that are actually your stance in life that becomes your mission? Now, you don't, if you're saying, all right, well, Nick, I don't have some crazy trauma. That's okay. That's good. We don't want people to have trauma. But, then you want to look at, well, what's your gifts? What makes you uniquely you? What are the things that you would do if you weren't getting paid? Right? An example in that is we've got a client, Lakeisha. So Lakeisha is a very talented hairdresser, but she's also an incredibly talented musician. And when we went through the same process and we removed money from that vision equation with the lottery example and asked her, well, what would you do if you had $50 billion in checking? Would you still be cutting hair? And she said, oh, hell no. I'm like, well, what would you do? She's like, I would sing. I would perform. I would dance. That's all I would do. And then it's the same thing. So we can all get honest with ourselves and we can all tap into that inner child and say, what is that dream that makes you smile when no one's looking? Like, what's the big, bold thing that would light up your heart and spirit that you think could be impossible? And you should have seen her face. And then when she then, in step 2 did the declaration. So step 2 is the declaration. A declaration is a formal public announcement, right? Martin Luther King, I have a dream, right? He declared his vision and he did it publicly, right? So when we think about it for our lives, for your life, it's when you declare that on Facebook and you declare it to everyone around you, it goes from a vision, which doesn't necessarily by itself, that may not hold enough weight, right? It doesn't have enough influence over your mind and to get you through the challenges. But when you speak it, it becomes real. When you speak it, you now have public accountability and you also attract resources. So Lakeisha spoke it. And from that situation, she ended up getting into action and selling. It was over $10,000 in her first month of music, which she had never done before. And all of a sudden, it became this new possibility that, wow, I could make a living out of music, right? So step number 3 is the letter. So when you drill that down, you're writing it to your future self. So you're writing it as if it's already been completely accomplished. You've already achieved it. And the key thing is that when you do it, you've got to keep it handy. You got to keep it by your bed. You've got to read it when we all have ups and downs. And when you have that day where you're like, you know what, maybe this isn't possible. Maybe I can't do it. That's when you pull that letter out, because that's what gives you the courage to go towards it. Courage simply means acting in spite of fear, right? And we all need a lot of courage to go for the dreams because it's not easy, but it's very rewarding. So you're writing as if it's already done. So for example, when I was 28, I'm writing it as if I've already achieved it at 30 years old. So it's my 30-year-old self just saying, wow, what an incredible ride it's been. When everyone told you weren't going to make it, you looked at that tattoo, you kept reading the letter every single day. In a really cool technique is in the letter, if you can, and this is kind of an advanced step, but if you can identify your limiting beliefs that are preventing you. So for example, my vision was, all right, well, I'm going to sell a business by 30. Well, in my head, what are those knee-jerk reactions, those immediate thoughts, right? And those immediate thoughts were, I'm not good enough. My immediate thoughts were, but I failed at all the businesses I've started. My immediate thoughts were, I don't have money, or my immediate thoughts were, making money is hard, right? So when I wrote all those down in my letter, I ended it with, I am a money magnet and it flows through me easily and effortlessly. Making money is easy. I'm a leader and a world changer. So like I wrote it as if it's already been done and what I would feel like. So, in my letter, I wrote something that I would always give me goosebumps is when I would read the part of my dad telling me how proud he is. And for a man, I don't know what it is about us guys, but like we're always seeking our dad's like approval and validation. But like in that letter, I explain like, my dad looking into my eyes and like meaning it from the heart and just saying how proud he is of me, of what I've achieved. And so it's like you want all that emotion, and I also wrote about some of the tangible things, right? Like the pleasures of selling the business, which is moving from, this dump that I lived in Connecticut to my dream place in a condo in San Diego overlooking the water. So I wrote in the letter, the feeling of the sun setting at night, and having a view to die for, and the feeling of making it and the feeling of being proud of myself. And those are images and things that I put on my actual vision board that it was in my head and that I made them real in the letter as well. And it's the key thing is the repetition, because to create a new condition, you got to really condition it into yourself with repetition until it starts to become believable to you. Because at first you're like, yeah, but I'm still broke. You're right. That's like the reality speaking. But yeah, it's from that future self.
So you were rereading the letter every single day.
Oh yeah. Sometimes I'd have a brutal day and it was like, I'd read it 10 times. And what happens is it's an immediate state change, and, it's like in coaching, we always say, so where are you coming from when you're saying what you're saying? Are you coming from a place of power or are you coming from a place of fear? And so if I had one of these moments where it was like, I start spinning out of control in my mind, thinking about the debt or thinking about how I'm going to pay my bills or thinking about all these negative, terrible things, I'd read the letter and it was impossible to be negative when I'm in such a euphoric state reading it. And that's the thing. And you also, it's like you want to get your mind into it, but your physiology, I would stand up and I would literally like look around as if I'm picturing this view that I had and really get into it. I mean, it seems a little weird, but it works when you fully get into it. So.
Okay. And then what's the next step after writing the letter?
Yeah. So after the letter, and then in number 4, it's resourcing up. And so I always say that to resource up, by the definition of, resourcing up, it's like you're investing into yourself. And, I've had people say, well, it's easy for you, Mr. Life on Fire. Like, you set these new goals for your health and you hired a health coach and you can do that. And I always bring people back and say, remember my story when I was $50,000 in debt? I resourced up when it hurt. I resourced up when I had nothing, right? Like, I had less than nothing. I mean, I was struggling to physically eat, and it's always about your resourcefulness as an entrepreneur, because anyone can, if you've got a big enough vision, anyone can find the money. And anyone that says, well, I don't have the money for it, or I can't do that, it's a cop-out. You're succumbing to fear, because even if you have nothing, I got a friend to go in-house and I borrow the money from Discover, right? It's like there's always a way. So as entrepreneurs, we have this ability to be resourceful. So if you identify that you need something to get you to that vision, well, now it's on you to go out. You got to first identify it, but then you got to find a way to get it. And why I'm a coach now is because after hiring that guy, Evan Pagan, as my first mentor, and then hiring a coach, that for me was my biggest breakthrough, because I had always been an entrepreneur alone. And I didn't know what I didn't know. I made a ton of mistakes, and I wish I had someone guiding me. And so once I had him, I realized that I could have shortcutted all that pain. And my why and my reason I'm a coach today is because I sacrificed my 20s, and now I get so much fulfillment and pleasure out of helping other people clarify their vision and get their vision. And it doesn't take them the 10 years like it took me. We do it a lot faster because they resource up, they hire us, we help them do it, and that for me is, I always say that having a coach, someone that knows what they're doing, someone that's where you want to get to, that can get you there faster, is a great one. But it doesn't have to always be a coach. It could be a book, right? Like that book, The Secret, for me was a form of resourcing up from things like $12. And my mom gave it to me, right? It could be, if we want to get to selling a business, you want to find love, you want to get your health dialed in, everything comes back to internal communication and even external communication, relationships, business relationships, sales, that's all communication. So we're always telling, our clients that sign up for Toastmasters. Well, Nick, I don't want to be a public speaker. I don't care that you don't want to be a public speaker. We're all in sales. We all communicate every day. Like I had a full out phobia of public speaking from a situation that happened in high school, but I knew that communication was important in life. And I devoted myself to learning that skill so that I could get ahead. And, communication, confidence, signing up for an improv class to get you out of your shell, right? Like, so those are all different forms of resourcing up that can help you get there quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Do things that scare you or that feel like risks. Like training and practicing. So what's the last step?
So the last step is number 5, which is choosing faith over fear. And so I personally, my worldview is I believe in God. But here's the thing. There's some folks that don't, and I'm not here to talk about, beliefs, but I want to know that the context of this, when I say faith, it's really believing, in yourself. And so when I think of the word faith is believing in something that you can't see, right? Fear is believing in something that you can't see. And it's actually a choice. So no matter what happens in the day, no matter what happens to your vision or how impossible it seems, or if you don't know the how, right? So many of us get fixated on, but I don't know the steps to start the nonprofit, Nick, or I've never done that, or and when you, instead of choosing the fearful thoughts of, I'm going to fail, I don't have the money, I'm not good enough, and you just say, screw it, I'm just going to choose faith. I'm going to choose to believe that this freaking letter is right. Like what's the big downside? The big risk is, if you just let go and you surrender and say, I'm just going to choose to believe, like a child believes that they can be an astronaut. Like a little girl says, I'm going to be a ballerina, or a child, I'm going to be a race car driver. It's like they have that innate ability to dream and to believe. And so, reading the letter and all that helps, but to me, it is a conscious daily decision, so that every time you're met with that resistance, and those challenges, you just make that choice and say, you know what, I'm going to choose faith over fear. And what's interesting is, now, the more aware you are of it, then you can actually reverse fear by realizing that the more fear that you experience, it's actually just an indicator that you have a lot of growth on the other side of that challenge. So, if I'm about to do something for the first time I've ever done, the first time I did a 3-day event, right? The first time I walked hundreds of people over broken glass to then break through a board. Like, that's crazy. Like that, how scary that is? Like, think of the liability, right? I thought I was supposed to do a firewalk at this event. We hired a whole firewalk company. We had the fire marshal, all this stuff. A week before the event, someone gets burned in San Diego doing a firewalk. They pulled it from us. And I said, well, I promised 350 people a firewalk. I can't have them show up and not have something. I'm like, what else can we walk on? And then, someone's like, well, what about broken glass? And I'm like, all right, let's do it. But like the fear that I experienced, the thought of me having never done this, having to learn how to do it the night before the event, and then teach 350 people to walk over broken glass without cutting themselves, in legit broken glass. Like they literally break the bottles in the room. It's there's no trickery. I mean, there was so much fear there that's exactly why I smiled and I leaned in and said, I'm going to freaking do this. And my letter talked about me marching people over hot coals. And all I did was I crossed out the hot coals and inserted broken glass. You can update that letter, right? Things shift. There's going to be pivots. Your vision is not something, it's not a strict concrete block, right? It's something that allow it to be flexible and pliable, allow it to you to flow towards it. And when you get there, and if, vision is something that we're always going to keep putting out further down the road. It's never just something that you arrive at. So once you arrive at you keep deepening the vision and allow yourself that flexibility to pivot. So it went from, hot coals to broken glass, huge fear. And I was like, all right, I actually reversed the fear because I was like, you know what, if I'm this scared, this is going to be huge. It's going to be good. We're going to change a lot of lives.
That's a great story. Okay, so you could you give us maybe one more example, and then I know we need to wrap up.
Yeah. So there's two, but I'll give one like in a little bit of detail. But I just want, to me, it's like this is such a cool opportunity to share the context of what's possible with it. So I'm currently doing this with my health. So my health has been a struggle. I won't get into all the backstory, but all I did was I created a vision for my life. I got connected with, I'm doing it not just to have the abs. I'm doing it for my child. I'm doing it. We just had a baby boy. Woohoo. And I'm doing it for my wife, my son, and all these things. But what's different, right? Like how many times, like people that are like close to me that really know me, every time we hang out, Nick's either doing a 3-day cleanse or he's doing a vegan thing or he's doing paleo. It's like, it's ridiculous. So what's different about this time? Well, the difference is because I chose something that's so freaking scary, the furthest I could have ever imagined outside my comfort zone, that it would shift my identity, right? And so when you have a big vision, it can shift who you are. So it's not just a fad. It's not something that you just revert back to anyway. So my wife, being the great coach that she is, she said, oh, you know what you could do? She's like, what if you signed up for a men's physique competition? I'm like, so what's that? She's like, the guys on stage that are all ripped, that are posing, spray tan. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, that's crazy. Like, I can't even fathom doing that. Like, I'm not like the kind of guy to be I'm not a center of attention kind of a guy or like a shirt off kind of guy. And I was like, that is crazy. But the act of signing up for that thing, just signing up for it and having the vision, writing the letter, posting it on Facebook, just doing that, all of a sudden I had people like laughing at me. But then I also had a ton of people saying, you can do it, man. Like you can do it, right? I resourced up, hired a coach. And as I sit here today, I went from 200 pounds. Today I weighed in at 175. I got to get a new belt. Like literally, I need a new belt. It's crazy. Like clothes are, even the shirt is like swimming. It's like, it's crazy. But the thing is that vision is so strong, but it's the declaration, it's the letter, and it's signing up for it. So that's a form of resourcing up. I signed up for that competition, but to achieve it, the same Nick Unsworth that had yo-yo dieted for years, a decade, what was going to be different? That's why step 4 is so key about resourcing up. What is going to be different? And when I hired a coach to help me through it, it wasn't just about the meal plan, because I had a freaking ton of meal plans. I had meal plans, I had exercise plans, I did all these things. What was different is that she helped me connect to the why, to the vision, but she helped me change my identity for someone that, I'll be honest, a little embarrassed, but like, I just would smash Cool Ranch Doritos, and I love beers. And like, I was like a little, I don't know. I had some bad habits that no one really knew about. It's kind of like my own thing. And I'm now the person where I don't want the Doritos like anymore. I don't even want it. Like I went from not wanting to go to the gym. Now I don't want to not go. Like I look forward to going. So, and it took about 80, I'm on like day 83. Not that I'm counting. But it's like, it took me going through enough repetition, enough conditioning to where it's becoming who I am. And you won't see me, the guy at 200 pounds again, because it's becoming who I am. And so the point of that story is that you can do it in your health, and health is a very cool, tangible one. And then another, just as a high level overview, people say, well, does it work for love? And what's wild is that when I sold the business, I moved from Connecticut to San Diego. I got out of that relationship that I wasn't happy in for 7 years. And I realized that I had achieved my vision, but I forgot to put love in my letter. And it was so crazy because I had everything I'd ever dreamed of. I had the house, I had the view, had all this stuff. I had the money. And it was so crazy how empty I was because I didn't have love. And as human beings, we are wired and designed to love and to be loved. And it is such a huge, important human need. And so I just said, you know what? What if I use the same process? So it sounds ridiculous, but I was at a personal development event, same mentor. I declared, had a vision. I got clear on what my perfect relationship would look like. I chose love at first sight. I chose to meet my soulmate. I chose everything that I wanted. I got so clear: dark hair, green eyes, everything. I laid it all out. I then read my letter in front of 350 people and said I would be engaged in a year. I then stood up and I showed them the tattoo. No, no tattoo. That'd be extra weird. I know I'm weird, but that'd be really weird. Yeah. And here's the tattoo of who I'm going to meet. But like it was so crazy that I read the letter in front of these 350 people, 300 and some odd people. And after that, I had so many people coming up and they're like, where is she? I want to meet her. And I was like, no. I'm like, that's a letter from myself of who I'm meeting. And they're like, so she's not here? And I'm like, no, that's who I'm going to get engaged to. They're like, so are you dating her? I'm like, no. You don't get it. I'm like, that's my future self. I wrote a letter to myself. And they're like, oh, okay. And sure enough, I had a timeline. I had a deadline, when I want to be engaged in a year. And I was having nothing but train wreck dates from Tinder and Match and all this stuff. But what I also realized at that event are, what are those limiting thoughts holding me back? I used to say things like, all the good ones are taken by now. You know how damaging that thought is? Yeah. You go out, you're trying to meet the love of your life, and you're like, oh, all the good ones are taken. Like, that thought was hindering me from meeting her, right? What I also realized is that the Nick Unsworth at that moment was not qualified to meet the woman I wrote the letter about. I realized that I had to grow into being the man that could get that kind of a woman. And so I hired a love coach. And this love coach taught me how to be a better man. And and I learned and all these cool things. And then sure enough, within the time frame that I set, the 12 months, we got engaged prior to that. And love of my life, dark hair, the green eyes, they're like a hazel, but it's pretty dang close. I wasn't going to balk about that. But and we're, we're in such puppy love, and we just had a son. And it's like, none of any of this by any means is none of this is braggy. This is, my goal is, for every single one to this is my mission in life, is my vision is I want to get this 5 steps in front of as many people as I can, because I went from such pain in a lot of areas of my life to having so much fun and living my life on fire. And now that it's not just this crazy process that Nick's done, we've trained lots of people on it. And now it's like, okay, this isn't just this is legit. Like, it's working on hundreds and even thousands of people. So it's cool. So I just employ everyone to just put this into action and just trust the process and just think like a child, go big with your vision.
What I love about this, Nick, is that You are so excited. First of all, you're so passionate and excited, and it's tangible. And then secondly, it's achievable. It's just 5 steps, and all steps individually are very achievable and realistic. So it's possible for every person who is here with us today, really, to be able to implement this into your life and to do the steps, to find the resources, to get excited. I think that's a big part of it too, is the feelings that you're able to generate. And that's part of the letter, I'm sure too.
Yeah.
When you write the letter, you're really feeling it and experiencing it and having that excitement that what you're showing us today.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like when you're stuck, sometimes you just got to get in motion, and even if that means just, reading the letter and moving around, it's like, little things like even cleaning your desk or cleaning your garage, things just getting you little tiny bits of progress. When we have someone that's stuck, we have them make a list of their energy leaks, all the things that are like that they're just meaning to do, that they're intending to do. We'll have them just do things physically that have nothing to do with their vision or business. But the act of just like, this desk has been messy for so long and I'm so annoyed by it, like just finishing that task, they feel a sense of progress. It's motion. And then a couple days later, they're now in a much better mental state where it's like, they're proud of themselves. They're fired up. So, but yeah, that motion is so important to get fired up. We only get one chance at life. So let's go big.
That's right. And you can have a win every day. You can have lots of little wins, and that's amazing too. So I love your process, Nick. Thank you so much for
yeah.
And I want you to tell everyone how they can connect with you, because I know they're going to want to follow you. Get your emails, absolutely. Stay
cool. Yeah. So I've got a really cool free gift, which is just go to lifeonfirewebinar.com, and it actually takes this process and goes, it goes even deeper. So, if you're digging this process, totally free, no strings attached, you can just grab it, get access to the training. So lifeonfirewebinar.com is cool. And then definitely on Facebook. So I share all kinds of fun, crazy stuff. Just like all the things that I'm doing. And I love Facebook. So, connecting there, just look up Nick Unsworth. Let's be friends.
Okay, good. So I'm going to have links for everyone. So make sure you go to lifeonfirewebinar.com, click the link, and then also friend Nick and follow him there. And once again, Nick, thank you so much, Nick Unsworth. You're amazing. And we really appreciate you sharing your process with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on.
All right. And to everyone who is here, thank you for being part of the Cutting Edge Convention. And I'm Marcy Peters. I will see you again soon. Have an amazing day. And bye for now.
Thank you for being part of the Cutting Edge Convention. We don't want you to miss a single valuable session. To have the entire event available to you at any time, purchase the package now before the event ends. That's when the price goes up. And watch your emails to get your next steps from Marcy.